happy few tonight. I'd like to welcome everyone, members, officers and members of the public to this meeting of the Planning Control Committee. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee clerk to explain how proceedings will work and to undertake a roll call of those attending remotely.
If a member wishes to speak, they should use the speak button located on the microphone unit. The microphone will light up green and the chair will be alerted to your request to speak. When the chair invites you to speak, the microphone will be made live and will turn red. At this point, you can speak. There's no public participants this evening, so I'll skip that bit. When requested to vote, voting will be via the yes, no, abstain button on your microphone unit. Details of how members voted will be shown on the screens around the room, and the results will be visible for the YouTube live stream. In the event of a tie, the vote will have the casting vote. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? No, I'll hand back to the chair then. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have not received any apologies for absence. Are there minutes of the 23rd of October 2025? I would like to propose that we take as read and approve as true record the minutes of the meeting held on 23rd of October 2025. May I have a seconder? I have Councillor Ruth Brown.
I actually would like to ask for some amendments.
My next question was, any comments on the minutes?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
We got that?
Got it in the right order.
We've got it in the right order. Councillor Brown, go ahead.
Page 10, where the Development and Conservation Manager responds and sort of sums up. He also said that the Thurfield Heath mitigation strategy is a material consideration. I think it's really important that is stated in the minutes. If you want to check it, it's on the recording. Do you know where it is? Well, anyway, we have checked it on the recording. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is the comments from Richard Jameson, which I believe committee services have received. I would like to see those key points added as stated in his email. And I believe committee services have a copy of that.
Can I ask
object to speech?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I ask committee services to look at those things and we'll come back and confirm? Is that okay? Fine. In which case, I am working on the assumption we won't approve the minutes. We'll bring these. I don't know if anyone can.
Dedicate the amendments to committee services to do, or you can bring it back. It's up to you.
Sean, did you have a view? Sorry. To approve subject to. Is the committee happy to approve them subject to those amendments? My only concern would be, what if someone looked at them and decided they weren't appropriate, the amendments? That's my I'm sure we won't. I'm sure. Martin.
Given the nature of the item that was discussed at the meeting, by the way, which I wasn't there, would it be appropriate to make absolutely certain we get the minutes right and are approved fully by the committee?
I think, unless any of the officers can tell me I can't, what I would like to do is to can I defer the approval of these minutes for precisely the reason that Councillor Prescott said, and then we can look at the amendments. We can come back to the committee, and you can approve them as amended. I've got Councillor Tyson and then Councillor Brown.
Yes, I just really wanted to say much the same thing, actually, because this resident has, I don't know if you're aware of what's in his email, he has cited 4 specific reasons for refusal, which I think would need to be looked at to make sure that they actually are genuine. I'm not saying that they're not, but I think that there's a decision to be made on that, and we can't just accept the revisions without properly going over it.
Thank you, Tyson. Councillor Brown.
Yes, I agree that they should be checked. Whether they're correct in terms of reasons for refusal is not so relevant. It's whether it's an accurate record of what he actually said in the meeting. But yeah, I concur with that. What was I going to say? Oh, yes, when they come back, can we have it as track changes, please? That the amendments as track changes, because otherwise, or can you send them round beforehand as track changes? Otherwise, it's impossible for us to find what's changed.
So because the minutes have already been published, the minutes themselves wouldn't be changed. The minutes where you agree the minutes would show that they're an addition to the minutes, if that makes sense. So say you agreed it tonight, in tonight's minutes, it would say this needs to be added to the previous minutes. We don't go in and manually change those minutes. That's how it's shown as a record. So it wouldn't be as track changes on the minutes. It would be it would be an amendment added into tonight's minute.
Okay, I think if
Okay.
That's how they're changed.
Okay. Fair enough.
sorry if I'm not trying to speak on your behalf, but I think the point is that we know when we research, so people know exactly what it is. Nothing is more frustrating to be given an entire document and have to guess which bit's been amended. Is that the point? Yeah. So just we're flagged up. I agree with both of Ruth's points. You know, it is about what is said, not as whether what is said is accurate or not. It has to be a true record of what was said. Councillor Prescott.
I mean, just as a general point, is it wise to publish minutes that have not been approved? I appreciate why you do it, I understand that. But should we not qualify the minutes in the agenda that comes out for the next meeting by saying subject to approval and amendment as necessary or whatever?
So they're published as draft minutes because there's a legal requirement for minutes to be published within 10 working days, and there's not another meeting for them to be approved within that time frame. So they're published as draft minutes, and then they only go on as formal minutes once they've been approved at a meeting. So if you notice on the website, it will say draft minutes where they're published.
Does it say subject to amendment and approval?
It just says the words draft minutes.
I think it might be helpful to add that. I appreciate entirely why you do it. I get that.
Sure.
Yeah. No, I just think it would be wise, especially because we haven't approved them yet. And I understand exactly the 10 days and all the rest of it. It might be, I understand what you say, Councillor Tyson, about draft, but not everybody really understands that. It's just a point. I think it would be wise to say that they're subject to potential amendment for accuracy and then approval.
Okay, we can certainly look at that.
Just a thought.
Councillor Bryony May. Bryony.
Thank you. A question. So once the approved minutes have been published, do the draft minutes disappear so that the only minutes that are viewable in a year's time are the amended minutes? Or
I'm guessing from the nodding along the table, the answer is yes.
yeah, so they disappear at the point where the approved minute. Yeah, thank you.
So I don't believe I'm not putting a proposal to the meeting to vote on, because I think we've just agreed that we will take these minutes away and bring them back. Okay, I'm not seeing any argument. Councillor Brighton, you were indicating, but you're not now, are you?
My standpoint is that draft minutes are draft minutes, and one assumes that people actually understand that. I think we're just getting too complicated about the whole thing.
I have to say, I think Councillor May's point was the best one. Is what's on the record is what counts. Right, I've lost track of where I am now. We're not approving the minutes. Item 3, notification of other business. There's none. 4, recording. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available both on the council's YouTube channel as well as on the council's ModGov site, alongside the documents from this meeting. Declaration of interests. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under the chair's announcements on the agenda. 3, to clarify matters for the registered speakers. I don't have to thank members of the public because there aren't any. We have no registered speakers at all now. All of them. Wow. Then I don't bother with that one then. Debate procedure. In order, I'm skipping through this. In order to move to a debate on an item, we will require a proposer and a seconder for the motion at the appropriate time in the meeting. This should take into account the information in the officer's report and will follow the officer's presentation and any public presentations, including members' advocates, as well as any questions of the officer and points of clarification for the public presenters. You want here. As a reminder for members, should you wish to propose a motion contrary to the recommendations included in the officer report, you will be required to provide clear and evidence reasons for this proposal. Section 4.8.23a. For the purposes of clarification, in order to vote on an agenda item in this meeting, a member must be present for the entirety of the debate and consideration for that item. If a member leaves the room at any point of the item, they will not be able to vote. Meeting cut-off. As outlined under 4.8.24g of the Council's Constitution, if the meeting proceeds to 10:30 p.m, the item being considered at that time will be the final item considered at tonight's meeting. Yeah. The remaining business will be deferred to the next meeting on Thursday, the 11th of December. Withdrawal of item 6. Item 6 has been withdrawn to allow officers to have more time to consider new information. This item will therefore be brought forward to another PCC meeting. Public participation. There is no public participation. So we'll move to our first application, 2500886FP, Reed House, Jackson's Lane, Reed, Royston, Hertfordshire. Oh, sorry, this one's been withdrawn. Sorry. Right, that's an easy one. Well, they all be like that. 7. Item 2500571FP, land north of Milksea Lane, Gravely, Hertfordshire. Alex Howard to present. Alex.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I have one update for you tonight, which relates to some email correspondence I've had with Councillor Peace this afternoon regarding the relationship between this application and one on the south side of Milksea Lane under application reference number 2300186FP. I think we can pick this up during the members' questions if that's agreeable to all. That's my only update. So if we can go straight to the slides, please. Brilliant, thank you. So the application site comprises an irregular shaped piece of land, approximately 1.4 hectares, located on the north side of Gravely, bounded by the High Street to the east, Bridleway 21 to the west, and Milksea Lane to the south. To the north of the site abuts land containing several stables and a barn, which are set back from Gravely Lane. The application site itself is mainly open in character and includes a large U-shaped stable block with associated paddock land, as well as several small timber metal storage buildings. The site is largely screened from the surrounding roads and footpath by mature trees and hedgerows, and there is a significant fall in levels across the site from north to south. The site is within the settlement boundary of Gravely, which is identified as a Category A village in the local plan. The southern toe of the site sits within the conservation area. The site has also been allocated for residential development in the North Herts local plan, which was adopted in November 2022 under policy GR1 for approximately 8 dwellings. Next slide, please. This is just a screenshot from Google Maps, sort of showing the site in context, sort of with the associated highway and footway network, and you can see the existing buildings and developed areas on the site itself. This is a photo from the High Street looking north towards the site. This is the area which I called the southern toe of the site, which is within the conservation area. Next slide, please. This is a photo from further north on the High Street, looking towards the eastern side of the site. Sort of shows the existing mature trees and hedgerows there. Next slide, please. And again, this is another photo of that eastern side of the site. This is approximately where the access is to be located, and I think this photo also helps to show the ground level changes between the site and the High Street. Next slide, please. And this is just another photo from the High Street looking south towards that eastern boundary. Next slide, please. This is a photo of the junction with the High Street and Gravely Lane looking south. Next slide, please. And from that same position, looking west on Gravely Lane. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a photo from Gravely Lane showing the existing sort of entrance to Bridleway 21. And this is a photo from that Bridleway looking towards the site in an east direction. This is that existing stable building, which is not within the application site. Next slide, please. And this is a photo from the bridleway looking south. The site is on your left behind that mature tree line. This shows where the bridleway meets Milksea Lane. This is approximately where the proposed footpath link from the site is to be located to connect to the wider network. And this is a photo showing the existing gated access into the site off Milksea Lane and the existing U-shaped stable block. And this is just a photo of the southern portion of the site from Milksea Lane, roughly where that previous photo was taken from. And this is just a photo from Milksea Lane, again looking north towards the site. The following 5 photos are sort of historic images of the site. This is one looking south from the northwestern corner. This shows the pre-existing buildings in that northern part of the site, which is not actually within the application site itself. And this is just a photo from within the site looking north, just showing the sort of array of buildings and general topography. And this is just another photo of that southern portion. And again, just another photo from within the site looking east towards the sort of dense tree line with the high street. So this is the site location plan, demarks the area of the site and the access portions considered under this application. That area to the north edged in blue, whilst within the landowner's ownership, does not form part of this application. This is the proposed site layout plan. The scheme comprises 24 dwellings, including the creation of a new access off the high street, internal access roads and pedestrian footways, parking areas, drainage features, amenity space and landscaping. The scheme would also introduce 2 pedestrian routes from the western side of the site to Bridleway 21 and Milksea Lane to the south. This is the proposed housing tenure plan. The proposal comprises 16 private market dwellings, which are shown in blue, and 8 affordable dwellings, where 5 would be affordable rent, shown in purple, and 3 would be shared ownership, shown in orange. This is the proposed bedroom number plan. The scheme would deliver 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom properties with the exact mix set out in my report. These are some proposed street scene elevations showing the east and west flanks of the proposal. This shows the proposed access plan, visibility displays and tracking for refuse vehicles, which has been lifted from the submitted transport statement. The following slides show the proposed floor plans and elevations for the different house types, starting with plots 1 and 9 shown here. So we can just sort of skip through these. I'll tell you which house is which. So this is showing plot 2. This is showing plots 3 to 5. That's plots 6 and 7. That one's plot 8. This one is plots 10, 11, 17, and 18. This one's plot 12. That one's plot 13. This one shows plots 14 and 15. Oh, I've lost my bearings, forgive me. I think that one's showing plots 16 and 19. This one shows plots 21, 20, 21 and 22. Plot 23 and finally plot 24. And just to finish off, these show the proposed floor plans and elevations for the single garages on the site. And this is the floor plans elevations for the proposed double garages on the site. So that is the end of my presentation. Happy to answer any questions from members, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions for the planning officer? Councillor Louise Peace. Louise.
Yep. So the question I raised this afternoon was to do with the land to the south of this site, land south of Milksea Lane, which has permission granted for 26 dwellings, 23/00186 FP. And my question was, should we be looking at these two sites together? Because in total they would be 50 dwellings, and that would trigger 40% affordable housing, and it would therefore be too short. And that was the question I asked Alex earlier today.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a good question. So whilst the applicant and the agent are the same for both applications, the landowner is different on both application forms. So while if they were the same site owner, we could consider them cumulatively, but because they're different, we can't do that. So they are considered separately.
Councillor Val Bryant. Oh.
Alex, I want to refer to the comments on the portal. There's a comment from Mr. Keeley, who lives facing plots 1 and 2, who is requesting additional planting of evergreen hedgerows to the east side of the access road for plots 1 and 2. And I couldn't work out from reading the report whether actually that was covered already or whether this would be something extra.
Thank you, Councillor. That is covered under section 4.3.26 of my report under living conditions. So I acknowledge the comments received from both of the two neighbours that commented on this application. And it's, I think in this case, it was regarding plots 1 and 2 and if screening was possible. So what I have recommended is a condition for landscaping, which is obviously a pre-commencement condition. And if I can just find the wording for that, if you'll bear with me. So yeah, condition 15, as recommended, is a sort of the standard landscaping scheme pre-commencement condition, but I have added in there details of landscape screening in front of plots 1 and 2. So it will be for the applicant to consider that and cover that off during the condition stage, should you be minded to approve tonight.
Thanks for that, Alex. Councillor Dave Winstanley. Dave.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Alex. I've got quite a few questions, but I'll just do this one for now, or two. I couldn't see anything mentioned in the letter from the highways, but I couldn't work out where this access into the site relates to the reduction in the speed limit from 50 to 30 on the B197. Because I just had a concern that it was in that kind of vicinity. But, you know, looking around on Google Maps, I couldn't work out exactly where it was, and whether it was, I think it is in the 30 bit, but it's just how far into the 30 bit, because obviously people don't immediately, you know.
Sorry, no, that's absolutely right. Good question. My understanding is that the access is forward of the point where 30 becomes 50. But I do take your point. But I think as part of the highways recommendation, they did propose a fair few conditions, and I believe one of them is a road safety audit, and details of technical details of the access to be submitted and agreed prior to commencement again. So obviously the visibility space will depend on the speeds in both directions. So if that is something that highways will need to consider looking north coming out of that access, if there is a speed change, and that might be what is covered under the RSA.
Does that answer your question, Dave? Yes. Lovely. Councillor Tom Tyson.
Thanks, Chair. Alex, just a relatively minor detail, but my eye was caught in 3.9 in the report on the ecology comments. Once I'd worked my way through some of the acronyms and initials there, this IACPC with the newts, I looked it up. The closest thing that I thought probably was an impact assessment and conservation payment certificate, which sounds like some kind of financial mitigation if to offset the destruction of wildlife. How does that work, and how does it actually conserve the newts that may or may not be there?
Alex, enlighten us as to what an IACPC is.
You'll have to forgive me for not being an ecologist, but my understanding is that we are signed up to the Natural England district level licensing scheme, which means that in certain areas you have to agree an IACPC with Natural England, agree to a fee, and then Natural England need to countersign it. And then once that's submitted to the council, that effectively discharges your impact on great crested newts. I think that's about it, Sean. If I've missed anything. No, okay, cool.
Councillor Tyson, go on.
Sorry to go on. What does the money do? What happens with the money? How?
I would assume
It's not just a fine, is it?
no. I would assume it's a it goes towards sort of a wider strategic approach to managing the impact on these protected species and their habitats. Sort of a pooling of resources, if you will, to put them into the places where they're needed, because there are sort of sensitive areas. I think it's based on where sort of ponds are located and development relative to those ponds within a certain radius. I'm kind of wishing Liz was here to give the proper answer, but I think that's generally the approach that we take in North Herts towards development that has a potential impact on great crested newts. Yes.
Alex, may I ask? Perhaps we could have after the meeting, but could we ask the officer to just forward a briefing to the committee? Or
I'm sure Liz would be fine with that. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Is that okay, Tom? Councillor Emma Fernandez.
It was just about the access, really, onto the high street. Will there be will it connect to a pavement? Obviously, to try and I know it's an allocated site. It is on the edge of the village. How sustainable is it going to be for people to walk into the village? Go to the school, because obviously I couldn't tell on Google Maps where the pavement comes in.
No, it's a good question. So obviously there is, as per my presentation, there is a footway up the western side of the high street. So in theory, somebody could come out of the vehicular access and walk down. But as part of the proposal, which was quite heavily worked on with the urban design team and in consultation with county's right of way department, there are some new footpath links in the south west corners of the site linking to Bridleway 21 and Milksea Lane. So for those properties in the southern half, you wouldn't need to sort of double back on yourself and then come down. You could walk down that way and then come down Milksea Lane and you're on the high street, and then walk into the centre of the village from there.
Councillor Ruth Brown. Ruth.
Thank you. Few quick questions. You, in your update, you didn't say anything about further comments from the Lead Local Flood Authority. Have you received any or not?
So at the time of writing, no. As far as I'm aware, I haven't received comments from the LLFA, but that is covered in the resolution. Yeah, I think we've got a resolution covering archaeology, ecology, and the LLFA.
I kind of expected it in your updates, but you obviously haven't received them yet.
No.
Right, second question. So it says, obviously the number of dwellings has increased significantly from the first application that's already been approved. Correct. It's 1.4 hectares with 17 dwellings per hectare. How does that compare in terms of density with the rest of Gravely?
That's quite a question. I mean,
well, I'm trying to work out if that's appropriate in this location, because obviously it's just a number.
I mean,
we need some context around it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I did have regards to the application that Councillor Peace mentioned earlier on the south side, and looking at the sort of site plans relative to that site and the site I'm dealing with, they looked relatively similar. So I thought it was appropriate. I do cover the density in my report. I think
you do, yes.
The principal element and the fact that, the scheme that you've approved already is for 10 with no affordable housing. I personally think the allocation for 8 was quite light for a site of this size. And, you know, with this 24 dwelling scheme, we've got 8 affordable houses. I don't think it looks too contrived. And obviously our urban design team have considered it throughout and also think that it's suitable in this location. So that's the position that I'm taking at this point. But
Okay, that's fine. The parish council asked for a contribution of 6,300 last time, and they've asked for it to be increased given the increased number of houses, but I can't see it increased anywhere. So what's happening about that?
no, so the parish council in their formal comments didn't mention anything about contributions, so I had to go back to them and sort of request the details. And what I say in my report is that the playground improvements in the village are sort of split between the scheme to the south for 26 dwellings, and it was agreed under the 10 dwelling scheme that's been resolved to grant subject to a 106. But obviously, if this one's approved, that one won't get built. So the feeling was, if the parish council want this improvement to take place, the funding will need to come from there. So at the time that I went back to the parish council, they didn't necessarily have a figure for me. So the agreement was that we'd put the figure that was agreed under the last scheme in, because that was the figure that was agreed at that time, subject to some further review and obviously index linking it as well. So it will inflate since obviously the time that it was considered, which was, I think, a few years ago now.
But it should also be increased in line because of the number of units. There's going to be more use.
Yes,
and that will happen.
yes.
So it's just a hold it like a placeholder for now. Is that is that the case?
That's how it was left.
Yeah.
And I think in the heads of terms, which the applicant has agreed to,
it's listed as 6,300. That's what confirmed
yes.
me.
Then it says to be confirmed following further details / costings of the projects. So I think that was the idea, to leave it a little bit of wiggle room there, because I agree. Obviously, 6,300 for 10 dwellings. This is more than double.
Yeah.
You would normally expect a greater fee, but I didn't have the information from the parish council at the time, so.
Okay, I just wouldn't want the parish council to be shortchanged.
No, of course, no. Neither would I.
That's all. And final question. In the toe there, that's in the conservation area, you showed us a nice photograph with some nice trees. Are they going to be retained?
My understanding is that
right in the toe between. Yeah.
My understanding is that they are. Yes.
Okay, I think that's quite important for the visual impact.
No, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Donald. Caroline.
Thank you. I just wanted to come back to the access and ask, is there a turn restriction placed on the access? So in other words, if you're coming out, you can only turn one way. The only reason I'm asking is because I came out of Gravely Lane the other day and I went to wait for ages because they come down that hill at such a speed. So actually turning right is a little bit hair raising. But I've seen in another recent application that they've put a restriction that you can actually only turn one way out of the development. So I didn't see anything, but I just wanted to check.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything quite like that. Again, as I've already adhered to, there are a fair few conditions from highways, most notably the road safety audit, and that the access details will be submitted and agreed prior to commencement of that part of the development, including visibility displays, which are affected by speed limits. So there may well be pure speculation, but there may well be scope in the future to possibly reduce the speed limit. I have seen that done in the past. I think that site in Royston was originally a 60 and is now a 40. So that might be something that could be looked at, but it's not something that we can necessarily control or deliver through the planning system, in my view.
Sorry, I couldn't see a lot. Sean.
Yes, usually as a result of a road safety audit, if there are issues that you raise, then that can justify the introduction of a lower speed limit. It's quite common in locations such as this, where you introduce residential development, that the speed limit is reviewed as a result of the road safety audit.
Thanks for that, Sean. Emma.
Thank you, Chair. I noticed, I think it was the parish council who made a request, I think, for Swift bricks to be included, presumably because there's agricultural buildings where there are Swifts living. Is that included in the conditions?
It is indeed. That is covered under condition 17. The development shall incorporate 24 integrated Swift bricks to be fully installed prior to occupation and retained thereafter.
Excellent. Oh, two more. Louise.
Just a quick one. So you're waiting on responses from the LLFA and Ecology. And I think the report says something along the lines of, if there are serious issues, it will come back to committee. What sort of issues would be serious enough for it to come back to committee?
So just to be clear, I'm waiting on responses from the LLFA. I've had a response from Ecology, who have requested certain surveys, BAT surveys, and obviously the IACPC that Councillor Tyson mentioned, and other matters that are conditioned or a little bit more general. Obviously, BAT surveys can only take place at certain times of the year. We're obviously outside of that now. So the idea is that with the resolution, should you be minded to agree, you know, it gives the applicant a bit more of a gusto to next year when they are in season to get that done. And then obviously the results of that come back, and we then reconsult with Herts Ecology, and assuming they're happy with that, they would probably recommend a compliance condition for any mitigation, perhaps. This is also the same for archaeology. So in the site that you mentioned to the south, I think they found a Roman road, and it's very likely the Roman road is going to go through the site that we're talking about tonight as well. So the idea is there that following the resolution, they can do those necessary assessments and surveys in correspondence with the Leeds team at county, and again, hopefully be able to get that to a suitable level as well. So, and then hopefully we'll have a no objection subject to conditions from the LLFA. And while all this is going on, the section 106 can hopefully be drafted. So it's all about just trying to keep things progressing, because yeah, things can often get bogged down if you sort of don't bring them forward, in my view. So yeah, but yeah, if there's anything serious, for example, they find, you know, serious archaeology there, then that might need the scheme to be revised. And if that is the case, we would need to come back and seek your view at that point.
Thank you, Alex. Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone's ticked off all my questions, which is great. I've just got one left, which it mentioned somewhere in the report, or might have been in the report, it might have been a comment somewhere about possible contamination from the previous use as a menage. Is there a condition that environmental, I can't remember what you call it, like, yeah, environmental impact check or whatever?
Let me just double check. There should be
contamination. That was it.
So I'm just having a little look at my conditions. Yeah, so condition 14 is the long sort of 5-parter that no development approved by this permission shall be commenced until submission to an agreement of the LPA of a written preliminary environmental risk assessment phase 1. And they do phase 1, and then depending on the results of that, they might need to do phase 2, and then they have to do a remediation statement, and then they have to prove that the remediation statement has been carried out, and I think it's called a verification report, and then that would confirm that there's no contamination for residential development.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, any more questions? No? Right. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission. Unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with the material planning reasons, I shall be proposing that we grant permission. Pause. That's what it says. Just before, I'm about to read a long list of conditions. Deep breath. Therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to A, the completion of a Section 106 agreement in line with the heads of terms, B, a response of no objection and any relevant conditions from the local lead flood authority to be delegated to the development and conservation manager prior to any decision, C, a response of no objection and any relevant conditions from Hertfordshire County Council's LEADS Ecology following the carrying out of relevant surveys to be delegated to the Development and Conservation Manager prior to any decision. D, a response of no objection and any relevant conditions from Hertfordshire County Council's LEADS Archaeology following the carrying out of a geophysical survey and trial trenching evaluation and consultation with HCC as appropriate to be delegated to the Development and Conservation Manager prior to any decision. E, the agreement to any extension of time to the statutory determination date to allow time for A, B, C and D to occur. And F, the conditions laid out in the report. Don't think we have any further conditions, or do we, on top of those? Alex? No.
Sure.
Stephen, you're looking like you do have another condition.
Just picking up comments from Councillor Brown as to the parish council, and sorry, apologies. Just picking up Councillor Brown's query as to the parish council's contribution. The parish, under the heads of terms as published, we don't have any flex to increase that, and wonder whether therefore there ought to be a tweet to recognise that we need to hear back from the parish council.
Alex, can I call you? Did you feel that was covered off?
I felt it was, but I will revert to our legal officer if he feels that that isn't sufficient, because I agree that it would be good to make sure that they do get the funds that they require to complete the scheme.
Yeah. Stephen, could you suggest some wording, please?
I'm just concerned that the heads of terms at the moment refers to a specific sum, and there's no flex in the heads of terms for the parish council to come back and request a higher sum. So we could reference the heads of terms or an increased parish council contribution depending upon their input or something.
Ruth.
I mean, I'll take advice from the legal officer, but could we include in the ABCD one along there, maybe after A, because it talks about head of terms, to agree the appropriate level of increase with the parish council or something like that, or subject to agreeing something like that, because I would feel happier with that, because there is a set amount listed in the head of it, and if they don't get, I mean, 10 and 24, that's more than double. So it's a big increase, so they should get a bit, and I understand it's in-text linked, but that's not good enough. It needs to be more than that.
Okay, can we agree some wording? Sure.
If you're willing to delegate that matter to myself in the first instance, what happens now is that when we have gone through the Section 106 process, the officer writes what is called a planning compliance report for me to sign off, and I have to assess whether the final Section 106 is compliant with the heads of terms that was reported to yourself, and if it's not, to a material degree, then I make the decision. I would have to make the decision whether it has to come back to committee or not. If you wish to avoid that from happening, then you could delegate the matter to myself to ensure that there is a commensurate increase in Section 106 contributions to reflect the difference in numbers between those that have been resolved to be approved and those that we're resolving, considering tonight.
Ruth.
Yeah, in which case, can we add the condition that a commensurate increase can be delegated, to be agreed, can be delegated to the Development and Conservation Manager? Yes, I think that makes absolute sense.
So that will be very similar to the other recommendation.
If it could be specifically included as, not just in line with the agreed heads of terms, because obviously that doesn't specify the increase.
That's right. But refer to the parish council contribution, which should be commensurate with the increase in numbers of houses compared to the previously resolved to be approved scheme.
Yes, and delegated to yourself to agree. Yes, that's I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Are we confident we've captured the wording of that? Alex, you have your light on.
I was just going to suggest, rather than making a new letter G, let's call it, if we just amended A completion of the Section 106 agreement now with the agreed heads of terms and subject to further correspondence with the parish council to find a more agreeable sum.
Yep.
I think that makes the most sense, if that's agreeable to you.
Picking up Sean's point that ultimately, are you happy for that to be delegated to Sean?
Yep.
Okay, if we're confident we've captured the wording. So therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to point A as amended, points B, C, D, E, and F, which I won't read out again unless you ask me really nicely. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Fallon.
Happy to second and reserve my right to speak.
After all of that, I've just we haven't actually moved to debate yet. So we now move to debate. Do we have any debate or any more debate, if I could add? Councillor Prescott, Martin.
Well, I was going to ask earlier, but it's not really a question. It was really, oh, yeah, it's true, but I'm trying to be good. I noticed Alex's report. There was nothing wrong with the report. It was his usual high standard, of course, but there were no photographs of any adjoining or nearby properties. And this really could apply not just to this development, but many others that we've seen over the months and years, that we are essentially, well, certainly my ward is a very rural ward. This is classed as a village, and yet we see pretty urban designs. These are the kind of designs you'd see in the kind of scruffier suburbs of North London. I know, because I used to live in one. And it seems a shame that we're losing the character. This is not a question and it's not a request. It's just a comment because we're in a debate phase. And it just seems a shame that we lose that as we give permission for more and more. And I understand entirely why developers do that, because it's cheaper to do the same designs over and over again. But you know, I think we lose something. I do have a question, which is perhaps rhetorical, but all of these conditions that, you know, subject to approval of and subject to no objection. So what happens if there are objections? Does the developer just come back and ask for that condition to get removed or varied, or what? Does it's presumably not going to stop the development, because that's not the intention. Well, I don't believe it is. And I don't have any real problem with the development. I'm quite happy to vote for it. But if you put a lot of conditions in there, subject to no objection, subject to da-da-da-da-da. So what happens if, I don't know, Highways or Ecology comes back and says, no, we absolutely don't like this? What's going to happen?
Sean.
The application will come back to this committee for you to consider.
Okay. We have immense power, obviously. I didn't realize.
The recommendation basically is based upon the assumption that they're technical matters that should be able to be resolved. But if they can't be resolved for whatever reason, then we would come back to the committee with potentially an altered recommendation, even if for example, we found a very important Roman settlement or villa on the site. It may well affect not necessarily just the layout, but the ability to implement a housing scheme on the site. So we would definitely have to come back to committee then. It all depends upon the circumstances. We don't anticipate that happening, but it is something that could happen. And under such circumstances, I would not be happy to deal with it based upon the recommendation. So we would come back to committee for reconsideration.
Thank you. Given the number of or the scale of development in and around Gravely, I don't actually know Gravely very well. I've driven through it once or twice, but given the scale of developments we've seen and approved here over the last months, the gods of property development have really got it in for that poor little village. I mean, it's going to change out of all recognition. I mean, there's no reason to refuse this one. And as I say, I'm quite happy to support the motion, but you do have to look at it sometimes and think, dear Lord, what are we doing here?
I think what Gravely obviously has had some housing allocations, and that, in my view, probably reflects its sustainable location very close to Stevenage, compared to more remote villages, which are less sustainable locations for the amount of housing that we're talking about.
Given the character of my ward, you can have all the development you want in Gravely and Baldock and everywhere else. Just keep away from Ermine Ward, please.
Right. I'm not sure that's a material consideration, Councillor Prescott, but we do have more, and we have more debate. Councillor Brown, Ruth.
Well, I was going to sort of concur with Councillor Prescott about character. I mean, when I first read this report, going from 10 to 24 alarmed me somewhat. I don't necessarily disagree that 8 might be too light. 24 is 3 times that was the allocation in the local plan, and presumably the local plan went through 5.5 years of examination. So why was it left at 8? You'd have thought it would have been increased at that point if it really could justify this number of houses. So I know there's a bit of flex, but that's a lot more housing. And I sort of concur a bit around the urbanisation of a village. Whether it's a reason for refusal, I hear the officers' things. This is hence my question about how does it compare with the density of the rest of the village? Because for me, that's the issue. Is it appropriate in this context? You know, there are places where it's appropriate to put a 30-story housing block, but you know, it wouldn't be in Gravely. So I think that's really my question, and I don't know how to resolve that.
I'm sorry, could we just pause? Could we take a brief pause, please?
If you leave,
well, no, because I've paused the meeting. What I was going, are we able to?
We should say anything during the pause.
Okay. You were saying?
I was just expressing my concern about the increase in the number from the allocated 8 to 24. Whilst I understand there's room for flex, it seems, having gone through 5.5 years of examination, odd that it wouldn't have been changed if it could accommodate that many. I've read the report and the justification for the case officer. I've got nothing to benchmark it against, which is why I asked, how does it compare with the density in the rest of Gravely? Because is it appropriate in this context is the key question to my mind. And that's what we mean by, are we urbanising our villages? Absolutely. it's a sustainable location. I get that because it's near. You could cycle to Stevenage from there, couldn't you? Presumably with the new cycleways are going to be through all the Great Ashby and so forth. So it is a relatively sustainable, and certainly much more sustainable than most of our villages. So from that point of view, I can't see I can't see why you wouldn't build there. But are we building the appropriate level and the appropriate kind of homes in that area? I'm not sure. I'm not entirely convinced. I'm just thinking about it.
Councillor Flanders.
I was also going to concur with what Martin said in the fact they're a bit sort of cookie cutter type houses that you could see anywhere. But generally, I am in favour, and I will vote in favour of this, because even though it is a large increase, it's still quite generously laid out. And it is a sustainable location, and there are 8 affordable units there, which is really positive. And the land from the slides we saw is obviously not in particularly good heart. It's almost, I don't know, it looks kind of like grey belt. It does look, it's kind of had some development, and in a way this is going to improve. I think it's going to improve the appearance, and the planting is being retained. So hopefully it might even increase, there might be a biodiversity net gain, who knows? So I think generally it seems like a good application, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Councillor McDonnell, Caroline.
Thank you. I think on a similar vein, in these rural villages, when you build a group of houses that seem not part of the village, but almost like a little piece on the outside with its own access, etc., is a bit strange. And yeah, it's sort of, I will vote in favour of this, but just again, is it the right sort of thing and the right way of building in rural villages? I'm not sure. The other thing that I'm a bit cautious of is this access turning right out of it with the cars coming down from Jacks Hill. I do just hope that the highways audit does pick up on that and extend the 30, because people don't really slow down even when it does get to the 30. So hopefully moving that up will help with the slowdown of the traffic. But that was all. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Bryony.
Thank you. I think the other thing that seems to be relevant is I think there are only 2 objections noted to the application and 3 neutral responses. So it doesn't seem particularly a lot for the size of Gravely, maybe.
Tom.
Yeah, I'll be supporting this application. It's an allocated site, so something's going to be built there. I have got to share the reservations about the density of that development and the perhaps not urban but suburban feel that may be generated by that quantity of houses on the site. And I don't know, the house design, I have to say I've seen a lot worse. And from my experience with the design team, they are quite thoughtful in their approach to these things. Albeit they're named the urban design team, aren't they, on their report? So maybe we should have a rural design team as well, just to make sure that we protect our villages from an urbanisation effect. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Louise?
Yes, I'll be supporting this for similar reasons that Bryony was just mentioning, in that the parish council haven't objected. And certainly in my ward, we are in a similar position to Gravely, in that we're near a larger town. And I could walk around my ward and see, here are the 70s houses, here are the 80s houses. Not all the houses in a village location are pretty chocolate boxes. And I think they've done a reasonable job with it.
Okay. I would add as well, perhaps in response, Martin, to your point. I think I take the point, but to a certain extent, what you're saying is, house styles of housing have changed and methods of building them. They don't. yes, when they build new houses in villages, they tend not to, it's not sort of chocolate box cottages built of Cotswold stone. In the same way, it's not just rural. When they build new town houses in London, it tends not to be built of Portland stone and everything. I guess a lot of this is just modern styles. Things change. Thank you, Councillor Mantle. Quite right. Yeah. Any other comments on this one? Any other debate? In which case, we have a proposal to I never remember the wording, to grant permission to this application and a seconder. So if we could move to the vote, please.
That motion's carried.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our second and final application.
I'm just glad it's worked.
If she wants to
Sorry, a very sensible suggestion from Stephen. Councillor Brighton, did you want us to adjourn briefly before we move to the next item, or other committee? I think that seems perfect. I think we could probably all do a 5 minutes. Val, we'll let you go first. Go on. We're adjourned for 5 minutes. We live? Thank you. Okay, so our second and final item. Item 8, application 250168 RM 66 Park Lane, Nebworth, Hertfordshire. Sean Graves to present. Sean.
Thank you, Chair. I've got just a couple of updates. Amended plans have been received, which just provide an alteration to layout of plot 7, and the layout of plot 7 has changed to mirror it and to match the other 3-bedroom dwellings within the proposed development. So floor and elevation plans are received to omit this dwelling from plans where various dwellings are listed on the same drawing. A change is proposed to condition 6 that relates to contamination. This is because the applicant submitted the phase 1 and phase 2 contamination reports during the consideration of the application, and those reports have been agreed by the environmental health officers. So therefore, the recommendation for the condition 6 changes, and I'll read out the new wording of the condition. So this basically affects that the original condition required the submission of phase 1 and phase 2 contamination reports. They've been submitted. And so the condition would now read, in the event that contamination not identified in the ground investigations to date is found at any time when carrying out the approved development, it shall be reported in writing immediately to the local planning authority. An investigation and risk assessment shall be undertaken by a competent person in accordance with BS 10175 2011. A written report of the findings should be forwarded for approval to the local planning authority. Following completion of remedial measures, a verification report shall be prepared that demonstrates the effectiveness of the remediation carried out. No part of the development should be occupied until all remedial and validation works are approved in writing. And the reason for that is to protect human health and to ensure that no future investigation is required under Part 2A of the Environmental Protection Act. So those are the updates. If we can go to the presentation, please. This application is for approval of reserved matters, which is before you to consider because the site area exceeds half a hectare, and therefore the Constitution requires a committee decision. This application follows the granting of outline planning permission for 9 dwellings, which was resolved to be granted by this committee in June 2024, it was resolved to be granted by this committee in September 2024, and the permission was issued in June 2025, subject to contributions to the Highways Authority. All matters were reserved except for access, so access has been approved at the outline stage. So what's before you today are reserved matters relating to appearance, scale, layout, and landscaping. So as you can see from the site is located towards the west of Nebworth, and immediately to the west of this site is the A1, and Martlets, which is the host dwelling, is the dwelling identified there to the south of the red line. To the east of the site, which is shown in green, that is the entrance and start of the site allocation KB1. So the KB1 site would be immediately to the east of the site. The site is located within the defined settlement boundaries of Nebworth. Next slide, please. So this photo is taken from the southeastern corner of the site and looks northwest. Next slide, please. This slide is taken centrally within the site and is looking south towards Martlets, and there's outbuildings to the left. As you can see there, there's a beech hedge basically that separates the application site from that existing dwelling. Next slide, please. So this is taken centrally also in the site, and that's looking west. You can't see the A1 because it's in a cutting. Next slide, please. This photo is taken centrally in the site and is looking north. So behind the site will be the remainder of KB1 housing development. So you will have housing development site to the north and to the east of the application site. Next slide, please. And this is looking north and east from within the site. Next slide, please. This is looking south from the northern border of the site, and you can see martlets in the background there. Next slide, please. And this is looking south from the northeastern corner of the site, again towards martlets. Next slide, please. And this is looking towards the main dwelling, which is to the left. That's the rear of the main dwelling, or the side actually of the main dwelling. And you see the outbuildings there in the background. Next slide, please. This is the site plan that shows the layout of the proposed dwellings, and layout is something that is been sought for approval. So to the left, basically north, is to the right-hand side of this layout plan, and so to the top end of the site, there is the west, and that is towards the A1. They show the different plots on the site. The purple dashed line shows where acoustic fencing would be located to protect it from road noise from the A1, but also the access to KB1 would go along the east side, so to also protect the properties from road noise for that proposed development as well. Next slide, please. This is a drawing that shows the floor plans for plots 1, 4 and 5. These are 4-bedroom dwellings with attached double garages and bedrooms in the roof space. You can see that the different dwellings have PV panels depending upon where they are located in the site, and they're on different positions depending upon which plot you're referring to. Next slide, please. This is the floor plans of the 4-bedroom dwelling on plot 2. This also has an attached double garage with bedrooms in the attic above the garage. Next slide, please. This is floor plans for the 4-bedroom dwellings on plots 3 and 9. These also have an attached double garage. There's PV panels proposed on the rear elevations. Next slide, please. These are the floor plans and elevations of the 3-bedroom dwellings on plots 6, 7 and 8. They have an attached single garage and also would have PV panels on the rear roof slopes. Next slide, please. This is the tree constraints and protection plan, which identifies the existing trees. The red outline is where tree protection is the extent of the root protection area around which there would be tree protection measures. Those that are identified with a blue centre are category B trees, and that those with a green centre, of which there's one on the very northern side, is a category A. Almost all of the trees are proposed to be retained. Next slide, please. And this is the submitted landscaping scheme that shows the existing trees and some additional trees to be planted, as well as an indication as to where there would be shrub planting, hedge planting, and grass laying. Those are conditions proposed to provide more, to require more details relating to the specific species and planting methods. I think that's the end of the presentation. Thank you. So, as I said before, this is a reserved matters application that's seeking approval of those matters of appearance, scale and layout and landscaping following the grant of planning permission, outline planning permission for 9 dwellings on the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Do we have any questions for the planning officer? Ruth.
Yes. So 4.3.17 permitted development rights. I consider it prudent to restrict the Class E and F permitted development rights. Can you tell me what Class E and F is, please?
Yeah. Class E relates to outbuildings, and Class F relates to hard standings, I believe.
So they wouldn't be able to develop the outbuildings and the hard standing without coming back to the planning authority.
That's right. It doesn't mean that they can't do it. It just
No, they
means
have to come
that
back,
They have
yeah.
to come back to us and get planning permission for outbuildings. It's to do with the reason is to relating to the protecting the trees that are on the site.
Okay, thank you. Second question. I notice it's exempt from, and I think I probably asked this when we did outline planning, BNG, 10% BNG, because it came in December 23. Very convenient. Could we not ask for some anyway? I know we can't mandate it, but could we ask for some biodiversity net gain?
There will be some biodiversity measures proposed, and we've got an ecological enhancement document that's submitted with this application, for example, that identifies the bird and bat boxes proposed. So there would be some enhancements, and so there would be some net gain. But what we can't do is require the 10% net gain as under the Act.
Okay.
Councillor Claire Billing. Claire.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what the acoustic fencing looks like. I'm sure it would be very lovely, but I'm just curious, really.
Well, it's usually in the form of fencing that sometimes you do see with around residential properties. It would be close bordered fencing, but the timber is usually denser, and they use a denser form of thicker form of timber. But its appearance would be quite similar to the normal close bordered fencing you get around residential properties, but it is a little bit more substantial in terms of its thickness and the density of the wood.
Okay.
Louise, please. Louise.
Yeah. Apologies if you mentioned this. The category B and A trees, they'll end up in gardens, presumably. Would they have TPOs on them?
Not necessarily, but there's nothing to prevent us from serving a TPO either before or after the development takes place. It's something that we would look at, certainly.
Oh, I'm sure there's another question. It disappeared. Make your mind up, Kaz. Dave.
Sorry, I was just following on from Councillor Billing about the acoustic fencing, which does make me a little bit nervous because I see one regularly, which I know is not in North Herts, the Great Wall of Stevenage, that is about, I don't know how many feet tall it is, but can we just check how high this fence is likely to be?
Yes, we don't have a particular condition at the reserve matters stage, but let me just check the outline consent. So it may well be conditioned at that point. In which case we could require further condition requiring details of the acoustic fencing, but I'll just check.
Just to sneak in a question while you're looking. Am I right in thinking this is higher, is raised up? Because the what Dave just said about the other one off the A1, I think is at ground level with the A1, so thus the fence is very high.
Yeah.
I had the impression this site is raised above, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, the A1 is in Cutting
Yeah.
to the west, so you don't have the same issues that to the well-known fence which is in Stevenage, not North Hertfordshire.
Keep getting that one in.
I do. Yeah. On the submitted landscape plan, which would be approved, it identifies between 1.8 and 2 meters in height. So if you were resolved to grant planning permission, that would be the landscape plan that's approved.
Yeah. And sensible. Okay. Right. Any more? Right. So I get confused whether we're in debate or questions. Right. The officer's recommendation is to grant permission unless members are minded to propose a different recommendation on this item, along with the material planning reasons. I shall be proposing that we grant permission. Pause. Therefore, I propose that we grant planning permission subject to the conditions laid out in the report. May I have a seconder? Councillor Fernandez.
Happy
Thank
to
you.
second, Chair.
Do we have any debate? Councillor Brown.
I think overall this looks like a good scheme. I particularly like the fact that there are PV panels and that we've faced the sun. Amazing. And each dwelling would benefit from an air source heat pump unit, which is really good. And they have generous plots. Looks like a fairly good scheme to me. And personally, I'm happy to approve it.
Anyone else? I'm not seeing any lights. In which case, I think we can safely move to the vote. The proposal is to grant permission.
That motion's carried.
Thank you, Amy. At which point we've reached the end of the meeting. I'll close the meeting. The next meeting of the PCC is on the 11th of December. I will be giving my apologies, and Councillor Fernandez will be chairing most ably, I'm sure. Yeah, no trouble from you, Councillor Prescott.
I might go all school team.
Thank you very much, and good night.